Hello, everyone. Welcome to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes, and today we have a lot in store for you today. Today's a really tough topic. Today is about pornography and how you talk to your kids about it, but a whole lot more. Now you're thinking, wait, my kids aren't ready for it, or we have had the one and done discussion, or we think we have it handled. Well, today is a set of resources that you can use. It's a menu that you can choose to take with you or throw it out the window when you're done. But I assure you, this is a really hot topic. And we have an expert here today. We have Melody Bergman here today, and she's with MediaSavvyMoms.com, and she's going to give us some expert tips. But actually, we're going to be on her podcast today. You see, we're doing a dual recording, so you're listening in to me being interviewed and interviewing her on her podcast, and you are along for the ride. Melody, welcome to the podcast. I'm going to let you start your podcast, and then we'll dive in. Does that sound fair?
That sounds great.
All right, you do your thing.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are talking with Josh Oakes today from smartsocial.com. He is an expert in helping parents to learn how to be involved with their kids and make smart decisions on social media so that they can be safe and also so they can create a beautiful presence online that will be good for employers and schools to look at in the future, which I find fascinating because this is a big issue that as kids are coming of age and creating a digital footprint, I've heard parents at internet safety events looking for ways to do this, but I've never found anybody quite like Josh who has a practical way to make this happen. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to interview him today. So I think Josh will agree that it takes a village to help our kids to be safe and to be smart online. And so we all have our ways, our different ways to approach this issue. And so us trying to keep our kids safe from pornography and creating a dialogue to talk to our kids about pornography, and Josh coming from Smart Social and teaching our kids to be smart online and creating really a collaborative approach between parents and children and creating a team effort. We really are having a meeting of the minds here as we're joining up together today.
Well, hey, thank you for those kind words. All right, so let me ask you a question, and we'll ask each other. Meeting of the minds. There's a lot of frequently asked questions that parents have, and all the parents that are listening or watching us on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching right now, there is no perfect parenting style. There is no perfect way to do this. I like to tell parents they're like Swiss cheese. They're delicious, but there's going to be holes there. And as Melody just said, those basically holes are there. The village has to fill in those holes. It used to be back in the day, there would be a village and people would raise your kids with you. And they would be better equipped for the world because they'd have a cool uncle or the neighbor. Nowadays, it seems like people really have siloed, and it's, nope, that's my child, and I will, But I think what we're going to hint at today is it's all about going back to that village, back to that community. You do not need to be perfect, and nor are we asking you to do that today. You just need to be good at what you're good at and find the right people to surround your child with. That's our role here today. And we are surrounding your child with Melody, and we're going to give you a few tips from smartsocial.com. Melody, pornography is a huge issue. One of the most visited forms of content in the world, they would say, is the porn industry. And I don't even have the stats in front of me, but they say that porn outperforms every other piece of content on the web, which is scary. Kids younger and younger are looking at it. It changes their view of the world. It changes how young men treat women. It just changes everything. I think people would probably agree with this, even if they aren't an expert like you at this, that it is something that we need to talk with our kids about. I want you to tell me, why should we talk about pornography with our kids? And then I want to know when, and then I want to know how, if you don't mind. So why first?
Sure. Well, it was interesting because in the introduction, you were talking about how a lot of us think that we have our one and done conversation with our kids about pornography. And I actually was having a conversation with a friend and colleague about this on the way to an event one time. And he said, don't you think it's interesting how we think we can talk to our kids about things like, don't hit your brother, don't hit your brother, don't hit your brother, don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke cigarettes. And we don't touch the stove. Don't touch the hot stove. Don't touch the hot stove. And we can say it a million times, But when it comes to pornography, we think we can have our one conversation, and then when we pat ourselves on the back and we move on. Why is that? Why do we think that there's a one and done conversation for this? There's not. We need to have this conversation over and over. And you ask why? Why do we need to have this conversation? It's because our kids live in a time and a culture where they don't even have to go out looking for it anymore. It's coming looking for them.
Yeah.
And I think that we live in a state of maybe denial sometimes, where we have to overcome our own inhibitions and our own discomfort and reach out. We talk about on our podcast, we have one of our most popular episodes is called Beware of the Rattlesnakes. That Marilyn, my co-host, talks about how every time they go in the mountains, her husband gives them the rattlesnake talk. That they go on this hike and they know there are rattlesnakes in the rocks. And so they warn their kids, about the venomous snakes, that this is what they look like. This is what you need to do. And it's the same with us, with our kids who are online. That what if you were handed your child a tablet and there were literally venomous snakes that would come out and bite them? Mm-hmm. Would you warn them, or would you just hand it to them blind? Mm-hmm. You would warn them. You would warn them what to do if these snakes came out. It's ludicrous to think that we're handing our children on a platter the whole world in their pocket, that we would do that without giving them some sort of a game plan to deal with this and letting them fly blind. So the why is because it's out there and they're going to come in contact with it, and we want to be the first and best source of information for them. And if we're not, then they're going to get their information on how to deal with this other places, like their friends, like the internet, like that, we want to be. Why is because we want to take control and not give that over to another source of information of how to deal with it.
Yeah. I love your snakes analogy, because if you're hiking with them, you would stand really close to them and be with them. And a lot of parents, not shaming anyone, but they'll give their kids Snapchat and Instagram and go, oh, I don't have time for those apps. And one of the things that we believe in is you have to be on the same apps your kids are on, so that you're there in case something happens and your kids feel more comfortable coming to you. Okay, so we've talked about the why. When should we talk to students about pornography?
Well, we give kind of a pat answer sometimes when we want to talk to our kids early and often. But what is early and what is often? And I think that's kind of a cop-out to say early and often, because we think, oh, well, my kid is not quite ready yet and I can wait a little while. What is that? Is that middle school? Is it high school? The answer that we give is, if your child has access to the internet, it is time to start talking to your child about pornography. If you are comfortable handing a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old an internet-able device, mm-hmm. then you need to have some sort of a game plan. You don't have to say the word pornography, mm-hmm. but your child needs to know if they see a bad picture, mm-hmm. if they see something that makes them feel yucky inside. Do you hear the words that I'm using? Yep. These are not offensive terms. These are not things that are going to spoil their innocence. If you tell your child, if you see something that is yucky online, if you see a picture of somebody that doesn't have any clothes on, then you tell mommy, or you put the tablet down, or you give them a game. These are talks about pornography. How hard is that? Is that really hard?
Yeah, and these are practical.
We start small, right? We don't have to tackle the whole enchilada all at once, right? Yeah. So when we start early, we start as soon as we hand our child the internet. And the thing is that parents don't realize, they think that their child needs to have access to a browser, mm-hmm. to have access to the internet. So they say, oh, well, I give my kid a tablet, but it doesn't have Safari or Explorer or Firefox on it, so they don't have access to the internet. But that's not true. Mm-hmm. If they have Messenger, or they have apps that people can paste a link on there that will link out into the internet, then boom, they are on the internet without a browser. So we need to be careful about backdoors into the internet also, and not be fooled.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of these apps, we've reviewed them. We've reviewed about 80 apps on smartsocial.com that are a lot of them in our red zone, because the advertising in the messaging app is suggestive, and it's pretty
Right.
legit. So we've talked a little bit about the why. We've talked a little bit about the when, and I love that. Just to kind of cheerlead you, and you said the why because they're coming after your kids, and your kids are going to see it. Number two, when you hand your kid a screen. So great. And that could be at a very young age, and it could be gentle. Hey, if you see somebody with their clothes off, you hand me the screen, you tell me, right? And then how do we start that conversation? Can you give us some examples, more examples of how we might do that?
Sure. And I think approaching a topic with our kids, any kind of a difficult topic, sometimes parents just want a script. Some parents are comfortable having open conversations and just having a cue here and there, and some just really want the words to say. I was driving down from a retreat with a mom one time, and she said, I'd love to talk to my kids about pornography, but what I really need is cue cards. If somebody could just, I would have the cue cards and sitting in my lap. And, there are some really great resources that apply to, like you said, parenting is not the same for everybody. Everybody has different styles, and we're like Swiss cheese, and we got to have the resources that fill in our holes. And a lot of things that we talk about on the Media Savvy Moms podcast are different resources that fill in different holes for different parents. It's what we wanted to do is what we set out to do was to present, instead of a cookie cutter, one size fits all resource that fits everyone, because there isn't one, to create a palette for our parents and then let them take the paintbrush and choose their paint colors that fit for themselves.
That's
so we talk about Protect Young Minds has a great book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, that you sit down and you read with your children. It's a read aloud children's book. It's illustrated.
For everybody joining us on YouTube right now, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids. There's a few of them out there. Is this the one you're talking about?
Well, actually, this is the first one. And actually, I've worked closely with Kristen Jensen, the author of this book, over the years. And I helped and consult and write the second generation of this book, because what happened was when she wrote the first book, see Junior down there? That is part 2. It came afterward, and you know why? Because after she wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, which is actually for ages 7 to 11, parents came and said, but what about my young kid? Because it's a little bit over their head. It talks about brain science and these sorts of things. So we wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, and I'm actually on the back cover, and I edited this book and consulted on Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior.
Oh, that's terrific. I love it.
This is for ages 3 to 6, and it does not use the word pornography. It uses the word good pictures or bad pictures, and it is these are the cue cards. This is what you sit down and you read with your child. Very easy. These beautiful pictures and step by step. Yep. If you see the terminology she uses is, if you see pictures of someone and you see the parts that are usually covered by a swimsuit, that's a bad picture. And it's like poison for our brain. And it's just very, very step by step. And that Junior actually has, little cameras hidden in each picture for them to find. And Junior has a turn, run, and tell plan for kids that we designed to be like stop, drop, and roll. Easy to remember for kids. When we see a bad picture, we turn, and it has actions that you go through with your kids. We turn, and we run, and we tell. And it has the hand motions, and that you go through and you practice the hand motions with your kids. And it's fun. And we read it together as a family, and we laugh and we giggle. We say, okay, you're ready? Now turn. Now we run and pump your hands and tell. And so, this may not work for everybody. It works for our family. It works for our young kids. Educate and Empower Kids has one, how to talk to your kids about pornography. That's a little bit more, here's a cue, here's a conversation starter. here are 30 different topics. We talk about sex trafficking. We talk about consent. We talk about healthy sexuality. We talk about, so this is a little bit more of in-depth, cues and questions and discussion starters. Then Fight the New Drug has, ways to talk about pornography with teens and young adults. And, so there's not a one-size-fits-all of how to talk to your kid about pornography. There's so many resources. And for me, I've been in this movement so long, and I'm just bursting with resources and information. Answering this question could take, a lot of years. And that's why we launched the podcast, because we have lots and lots of answers to this question, and they're so tailored to every family and what they need at the moment. And so that's why we're doing this one little bit at a time, one step at a time. What do you need? What do you need in this moment? And each parent is different, and each child in each family can be different from each other. Maybe one thing works for one child and something different works for even the same child, or a different child in the same family. Everything is so individual.
Yeah. So this is great. So why, when, and how, and I love that we're on the same page with those books. I think that's a really great resource. So I know what parents are thinking right now. Not in my house. We'll do the one and done. I'll do this when I'm ready for this. I'll talk with my kids when I'm ready for this. I want to show everybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, I'll read through it. If you're not, YouTube or Facebook, I want to show you something and share with you. I'm making a couple hundred videos this year, and they're 60-second videos at smartsocial.com. We have a frequently asked question page where it just takes every concern that we've received over the last few years. Okay, the first one is, where do your kids go when they see something bad on social media, right? This is one that comes out next week or something like that. Well, it's not if they see something bad on social media, but when your kids will see something bad online, whether it's on a web browser, inside of an app, on social media, or wherever. Often kids will get quiet, anxious, or go to their friends for advice. I had a woman come up in Spanish and English, ask me in Spanish dominant, and I speak a little bit of Spanish, but she said, my daughter is terrified after dark, and here's what's going on. And she got really quiet, and we had to figure this out, but she saw something bad online. We want the students to go to their parents when something happens. If you, the parents, join the same apps as your kids and you follow them and monitor them as a follower, it does not mean you need to comment on other stuff or post at all, but you must be where your kids are at. They are more inclined to come to you and tell you when something is wrong. Parents and their surrounding community of trusted adults and that village that you build around your child are the best safety app that will be able to protect your kids. That's right. Oh, no, I'm protected. I outsource my transportation to Uber and Lyft, and I'm going to outsource my safety to this app. I'm cool. No, that dialogue, in our professional opinion, is the number one thing. And being there with your kids on Snapchat, on Instagram, or looking over their shoulder and laughing with them and talking. And Melody has all the right tips and suggestions on how to start small, early, and often. This is a month-to-month or week-to-week discussion. It's not a one and done. So those are some of our tips on where do your kids go when they see something bad on social media. I'm going to try and link below to that. And we're going to link below to the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures books, both the one for middle schoolers or elementary school, and then the one younger to that. Does that sound fair, Melody?
Sounds great.
So we'll link below to that. But that's one of the tips that we hear often is I'll show my son or daughter how to drive this car when I'm ready for them to drive. No, you hand them the keys and you're going to teach them how to drive. That's dangerous. So your kids are going to get in a car long before you give them keys to a beat up little car that you want them to learn how to drive, or before they get their permit to drive. In California, it's 15. In other states, it might be a little bit earlier, later, whatever. But the point is early and often. And that way you can say, hey, this is what healthy driving looks like. And you need to model that too. Everybody's talking about this, the village, the community, and modeling positive behavior online. And I love where you're going with this. So anyways, that's a little bit of our our discussion points that we have. Now, okay, look, I'm going to give you last word. What would you tell parents that are on the fence? Okay, how do I first start it? What's just a little bit tip of the iceberg to get them dialoguing about this week?
It's ironic because our first episode was called Get Off the Fence, Talk to Your Kids About Pornography. And I would just challenge the parents out there to don't be intimidated. Remember to love your children first. And I would say in the next week or so, just have a conversation about pornography. If you're not feeling so bold, it doesn't have to be with your children, but start a conversation about pornography with a friend, with a coworker, with your spouse, with someone you feel really comfortable about. Just start dipping your toe in. Get off the fence. Start talking about pornography. It's important.
Yeah, that's great. I've got one more tip too. Parents that are listening to this, consider if you have an older child that's already gone through this and is pretty well behaved, talk to them about also talking to your kids about this, because we get calls at Smart Social from parents who said, we discovered something because the older sibling heard something from the younger sibling and there was a predator trying to abduct the children. This was last weekend for me. My whole weekend is wrapped around a 14-year-old boy that somebody was trying to abduct. Not in my city. That only happens in other countries. Happens where, it happens not too far from Los Angeles. And so long story short, the older brother, who's a few years older, was the one that the kid went to. And that's really, it's the village. Doesn't have to be an uncle, doesn't have to be somebody else. It could be a sibling. Your sibling could be the link. If you're not the cool parent, which that means you're a great parent, you're not worrying about being cool. You're worrying about loving your child when they're 25 more than now, meaning that they grow up being an awesome, well-rounded human being, and they're going to hate you once a month. If your kids dislike you because you parented them more than worrying about them liking you, 2 thumbs up from us, you get an A, because they should be upset because you're giving them what they don't want so that they will be better off in the future. Your coach in high school, if you played sports, they forced you to work extra hard before that game, or that your piano mentor said you're going to play for 6 hours on Saturday so that you're ready for that recital. Whatever that is, you probably didn't want to do that, but they forced you to become your best, and that's what we want you to do. On both of our podcasts, we want you to take that next step. It's going to be hard, but we're here for you. You can come back to us at any time. You can comment, you can reach out, but most importantly, have that community around you. Hey, Melody, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast and for you being on ours. This is awesome.
Thanks so much, Josh.
For all of you that are listening, please rate, subscribe, review. We have this message that's helping people. And if you liked what you heard today, please click the front of iTunes or Stitcher Radio or Facebook, wherever you're listening to us or watching us on. Please give us that either little thumbs up or give us an honest rating. We are forever grateful because it helps us reach more people. It helps us spread our message to make sure kids are safe and smart online, to make sure parents are having that really uncomfortable dialogue. And then once they have that, they go, whoa, I have a resource. It's a lot easier. So if you could please just share our message by rating, subscribing, and reviewing, it will mean the world to us, and you will help. You might help somebody in your community to discover us so that we can help them. We're thankful for all of you. Melody, I'm thankful for you and all that you do on your program.
Thanks, Josh.
We'll see all of you soon. I'm with smartsocial.com. Melody, you can click her links below, is with MediaSavvyMoms.com. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great day, guys.